Welcome back to Her Purpose, the show where we highlight women who are courageously building lives and businesses with heart, intention, and purpose. Today's guest is Lexi Westergard, the creative force behind Lexi Westergard Design. Lexi is a powerhouse interior designer who not only runs a successful full-service firm, but also offers virtual design sessions to clients across the country. In this episode, she opened up about how she started her business with a newborn and zero portfolio, the fears that she had to overcome, and how she's built a brand that allows her to thrive in business without sacrificing her role as a mom and wife. Whether you're into design or you're just someone who's dreamed of building something of your own, Lexi's story is packed with honest wisdom, relatable moments, and the reminder that it's never too late, never too messy to start. Let's dive in. Lexi Westergard, that is the name of your business, correct?
Yes, it is.
That's awesome.
Creative.
I love it though, because it's you, it's your business, it's your vision of what you want to create in people's homes. But first off, just talk to me a little bit about, I think what I love about your business is that you do so much online and you do what you call digital sessions. For someone like me that loves your work, that lives states away, talk a little bit about what you do in your business today.
So I'm an interior designer. So my business is Lexi Westergard Design. Again, very creative, just my name. And so we do specialize in full service interiors. So we do a lot of new builds, remodels, full furnishings. But we were getting a lot of people that wanted to work with us that just weren't in the scale. So we created what we call design sessions, where it's an hour video chat and it's just with me. And, you know, we've done where we help with kitchen remodels. We just did one that was for a fireplace. They were getting ready to get a new fireplace. They didn't love the design that the contractor came up with. So in real time, I was just able to redesign it. And, you know, we picked paint colors, tile, because we have all those samples here in our office. And so, we can get a lot done in an hour, especially if they come prepared with, you know, their goals and what their end product is. Sometimes they might need to get an additional session if it's larger scope. But we just feel like that's our way to be able to help kind of everyone instead of just our full service clients.
How much of your time do you feel you spend with local clients where you're walking in their homes versus online clients?
The online is a small portion. We do work with clients out of state, but typically those projects, if they're full service, during the pandemic, we were able to really streamline our communication with out-of-state projects, and we kind of know when we need to be on site, when we don't need to be there, and how to communicate with the builders through, digital. We also, not to get too much into it, but if you're building a home, we create what's called a design book. And what that is think of it like the architect creates the floor plans and the outside. Well, we're doing the inside elements. So we're elevating all the interior walls, which include like millwork, lighting heights. We call out all the materials that we select. We'll create spec schedules so the builder knows what to buy, where the materials go in each space. We show what layout we want the tile in. It's very detailed and it takes a lot of time to complete that. But we just find that when we have that element, that the project goes a lot smoother and we know that they're executing it properly versus having to guess what layout we want, what grout color. We always joke that people just think, oh, your job's so fun. You just shop and pick out fun fabrics. And it's like, that's such a small percentage of what we actually do. What we actually do is executing all the interior details, like even just doing millwork. We're choosing all the trim pieces on the wall. That could be 5 different materials, and we're laying it out. We're dimensioning it out, and then we're also communicating with the contractor, usually on a weekly basis, to ensure that everything's going well and managing those aspects, but also just taking the stress off of the homeowners, because a big part of building a home is the decision fatigue. They don't even know how to answer the contractor's questions. and we're able to fill that in for them. And it takes us, a few minutes. We just actually had a client that was choosing a stain sample, because we always get stain samples and then approve them, because long of the short is like every wood takes it differently. And so we always want to approve those before it goes in. It was for a built-in. So she came into our studio and was like, what color should we do? And I'm like, oh, this one. She's like, wait, that was so fast. How did you do that? I'm like, years of experience, And so something that could take a homeowner hours to decide and then they second guess it, we're able to do in minutes because of experience. And, we do this for a living.
Yeah. So how does it feel to be doing that service for other people? And how does that relate to you feeling fulfilled and living in your purpose in what you do?
Yeah, I love what I do because of we get to meet so many different walks of life, and what we do is so personal. And I love being a part of this big aspect of clients. Your home is a sanctuary. It's more than just a place you live. I like to think back of like, it's where basically the backdrop of your memories are made. And so that's always been super important to me. And I find that I want to give that to other clients. And I just love that aspect of it.
Yeah. So growing up, did you always know I want to be in interior design, or did you have other things that you thought you would want to pursue as an adult?
I did not know until probably my junior year of high school that was even like a thought. So I look back of when I was younger, I wanted to be like a pediatrician, PI, which is hilarious because, like I remember 7th grade, I was like, I want to be a PI, which makes sense because I love crime podcasts, same the things. So I'm like, that's hilarious. And then I wanted to do hair. And I actually was signed up my junior year to do the in-school program where you go your senior year of high school to hair school. And so me and my best friend at the time were going to go do that. And I did a project in one of my classes where you could choose 2 different careers. So I was like, oh, hair, I'm for sure doing that. And then the design was kind of an afterthought that I was just like, oh, maybe I'll do that. But I think that that's kind of what planted the seed of wanting to do it as a career. And so after working in hair for a year, which I was an assistant. I loved assisting and I loved the salon I worked for. I decided, maybe I want to do something different. And I think it comes from, honestly, my daddy's a chiropractor and I had a bad back. I was in like lots of car accidents as a teenager. And so he's like, it's so bad on your back, So I decided, maybe I will switch to design and do that. I can always come back to hair. And so that's kind of when I decided to go to school was, I think a year and a half after graduating hair school. Yeah, that I went back to school for interior design.
Did you go straight into college after high school, or did you have a break between graduating?
Okay, gotcha. So I worked a year in hair. And then when I was, after that year being out of high school, doing hair, my friend actually said, do you want to move to Hawaii with me for the summer? And I was like, no, like I have my career going. I'm going to start getting like my own clients. But then I thought, when am I ever going to have the chance to move to Hawaii? So I said, okay, let's do it. So I went to Hawaii, and then that break of like not really working, I worked at like the Polynesian Culture Center, which is like did luau's and all this stuff. I worked there. So I did that for the summer, and then coming back, that's when I decided to go to design school. So I like to think that break really kind of allowed me to think about other possibilities of if I wanted to do hair school or go to design school. I don't know if I would have changed, to be honest. So, but who knows?
I wonder how many people take that much time between graduating high school and then actually go to college, because I feel if you don't go to college right after high school, the odds of going back to college probably drop pretty substantially. But when you made that decision, did you know in your heart, this is more in alignment with how I want to show up in the world? Or were you unsure?
Probably unsure. I was 19 at the time. I think another seed that planted is I had a friend that was in kind of the same friend group that was going to design school. So then I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting because it was a 6-month program. It wasn't like a full 4-year degree. So I think that made it feel easy to switch to as well, where it was like, I'm not going to have to do 4 years of college. I could do this vocational school that only teaches design and then work after that.
So I'm just curious, since you are now running your own business in design and you went through that schooling, how much do you think having that schooling played a part in your success? How necessary is that?
I think a big part. I think definitely a big part. There's things that you learn at design school that I think are really important that are foundational aspects. We did art history. You learn the history of furniture, space planning, I think is super important, scale. There's like different design rules that I feel like a lot of people are like, you could break them. But at the same time, there are like principles that make a room look nice. And I think that gave me that foundation. I did not learn AutoCAD, which I really wish I would have learned AutoCAD. So that's kind of always my advice that people are like, I want to start my design business, but what should I do? I'm like, you got to learn AutoCAD. That is just so important if you want to be a designer. If you want to just do decorating, you don't necessarily need to, but we're heavily in AutoCAD and SketchUp and doing drawings, renderings. It's a huge part of our business, especially if you're doing new construction, remodels. You can look at a space and have an idea of what you're going to lay out, but until you get on paper, that's where you can really see the possibilities and different layouts and things like that.
So when you got done with this vocational school, did you go straight into working within the design field?
I did. Yeah, I found a job at a furniture store. So I worked there. And then my husband and I ended up getting married. So I think we were dating while I was in design school. We ended up getting married and he was going to school up in Utah. So then we moved up there. I got another job at another furniture company. Interesting enough, during that time, I did the design where I would help customers like go into their home, help them, and then sell our product. Well, it was commission-based, and my husband was in school, so I got a little nervous about being commission-based. They would give you I think it was like $2,000 a month at the beginning to kind of get you on your feet, and then
like a base,
full commission. Yeah, like a base. And once that kind of was up, I was thinking like, oh, I feel like I want something more stable. So I ended up doing their ordering. And then so I did their orders. And by the time I was done and I left there, I was doing like 4 people's job. So I ended up taking on the ordering, delivery team, and customer service. And so I really contribute that to being kind of the foundation of learning the back end of running a business. Because that's a lot of what we do is like ordering, obviously customer service, filing claims of furniture, which obviously I have a team that does that. But when I started out and was doing everything, that really helped me.
At that time, did you have a plan of having your own business at some point?
I think I always had, even in design school, like aspects of like, oh, it'd be fun to do something on the side once I had kids and start my own thing. But no, it was definitely not something that I was at the forefront of my mind thinking like, oh, this is going to help me when I start my own business. This is what I'm going to do. No, definitely not. But I think I always kind of had that in the back of my head, but not the forefront.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that we go through in life, that these different experiences that we don't realize are preparing us for something down the road. And you go through seasons and you're doing different jobs thinking, I don't even like this. And then later you realize that served a purpose for me.
Totally. I can't agree with that more because there were times I had a long commute that I didn't really love doing that, but it definitely helped me down the road for sure.
So after that job, I want to say you told me you had another job.
Yes, I had a couple, to be honest. So we moved back to Arizona and it was in 2008. And so that was kind of a horrible time to the construction, especially in Arizona, the construction business was not doing great. And if I'm being honest, I really felt insecure that I didn't know how to do AutoCAD. At that time, I kind of understood that a lot of.
No, what is AutoCAD? I have no idea what that is.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
AutoCAD is, I know, sometimes I talk and then realize, wait, this is like a second language to someone else. So AutoCAD is the program we use for floor plans. So every architect uses AutoCAD to create their floor plans and the building aspect of a home. And so we do that for furniture placement. We'll elevate walls, which means we're just kind of working our way up. And so kind of as if you're standing in the room, and we'll do like a kitchen and elevate how we want the hood to look, the proportions. It helps us to see what the space is going to look like before it's actually built.
So you knew about the program, but you had no experience with the program. And so that limiting belief of, I don't know enough about that, stopped you?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. And then I think also the limiting belief of no one's going to hire me because I don't know that. And then also the market. I didn't even try. I think that for a lot of years, I had a fear of rejection. And I think I still sometimes do, to be honest. Like, I'm afraid to put myself out there because I'm afraid of that rejection. And this year I've been like, I'm going to network more and just put myself out there because what's the worst that can happen? But I mean, that's taken me a long time to get over. And
yeah, like how long did that hold you back from stepping into actually building your business?
A lot. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so I really think I could have benefited from working for a designer prior. I mean, I know I could have, because a lot of these things that I learned, like a design book that I kind of explained at the beginning, I learned all that stuff the hard way. I've just tried to figure it out. And then obviously I networked with other designers in my area that then we kind of help each other out, which is so nice. But that took a long time to kind of figure out. Like my first projects, I was hand sketching things, So there's just, hindsight's 2020. There's a lot of things that I'm like, oh, I could have done this and this and this differently. But at the same time, I wouldn't be where I am today without all of those things. And I also really pride myself in like, I can just figure out anything. I've always kind of thought that's about myself. And so although like the business side I've like taken years to develop, I eventually knew I could do it. But now thinking back, I'm like, I should have like I did pay to do some courses. Like a designer was doing a course. So then that's how I learned about different aspects of the back end. But yeah, now it's like, oh, I would have probably done more courses to learn things quicker.
Right. Now you, prior to actually starting your business, so how many years was it from when you finished that vocational course and launched your own business? How many years?
I think 9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
So, and there was a period in there where you worked for your dad?
Yeah. So I worked for my dad. I worked for a school with kids that have autism. So
that must be near to your heart.
Yeah, definitely. And then I've always loved kids. But anyway, so then I went to work for my dad. I was kind of the office manager for him. And I am glad that I did that because my mom works there too. So we'd go to lunch a lot and it was fun to have that time with them. And, but yeah, it wasn't until after I had my kids that I started my design business.
Yeah. So your daughter was how old?
She was 2.5.
And your son was 6 months?
No, he was like 6 weeks.
Oh, 6 weeks. He's tiny.
I think he might have been 4 weeks, to be honest, because I started my business April 2015 and he was born March 2015. Like the end.
Wow. So crazy time to decide. I think now is the time to launch the business.
Yeah. Exactly.
How did that come about?
So after I had my daughter, Instagram was it was 2012. So Instagram, I started following some designers on Instagram and I went to, it's kind of like a parade of home where you go and you can go through different homes and see what designers and architects and builders done. They kind of showcase their work. And that kind of gave me the bug again that I'm like, I really want to do something creative. Like, I feel like I could really do this. And at the time I was a stay-at-home mom. So I quit my dad's working for my dad and was a stay-at-home mom, which I always wanted to be. And then I decided, oh, I think I'll do it on the side. So then when my daughter was little, I asked my friend, she was wanting to redo some of her house. I said, let me do it for free and I'll help you. And so I helped her do that. And then because I was thinking, oh, I'll get portfolio images. And ultimately, I ended up not getting portfolio images, but she referred me to a patient of hers.
Why did you not? I know that you struggled with the fact that you did not have a portfolio. That was something that you told yourself is the reason that you couldn't start, even though everyone starts without a portfolio. No one, I guess if you consider doing it for free, but even then you have to get free work without a portfolio. Everyone has to start without a portfolio. But why did you not get the pictures for the portfolio in that scenario?
I think it's because we never finished the space to be on us. So it was kind of like we did a little here, a little there, but it wasn't enough of a complete space that I wanted to showcase. But she referred me to my first client who was a single dad at the time, moved into a new home and needed someone to do all the furnishings. And so he really trusted me and he didn't ask for a portfolio. He just trusted because he was referred to me by this mutual friend. And so long story short, while I was pregnant with my son, he was wanting me to work for him, hire me. I had a really hard pregnancy. I had some preterm labor. The way my son was on my nerves, I couldn't hardly walk. So like even going to the grocery store, I had to ride a scooter, which is super humbling. And then 6 weeks prior to my son being born, my husband broke his leg.
Oh gosh.
And he was the one grocery shopping, cleaning the house, doing everything because I could hardly move. So that was a huge, trial in our lives. And so I'm like, there's no way. So then when he came back a month later after I had my son, I knew this doesn't come around very often and the chance of this happening is pretty slim. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And at the time I had no clue how to charge. I had an LLC at the time because I think I did an LLC prior to even getting my first project because I knew I needed to make that, those steps. But yeah, it was crazy times, up in the middle of the night on my phone sourcing, and just when the kids napped, I would work and wake up early to work. And yeah, it was wild times.
Speak to that inner knowing that this is something I feel called to step into. I feel capable. I may be scared, but I know I need to take courage and step into this. What did that feel like in that time with a 4-week-old?
I feel like it was all a blur, to be honest. But I really credit my parents because they have always taught me that I can do anything that I put my mind to. I remember a distinct moment of my childhood when my dad said, Lexi, you really could do anything you put your mind to. You could be the president if you wanted to. That's just like your personality. And so that always stuck with me. And so I just knew, I think that their courage in me allowed me to have courage in myself and know like I can figure it out. I also have this weird characteristic of like, I kind of like doing things that scare me a little bit because I don't know, like I've skydived, I've done canyoneering. I like things that like make me a little scared and get me out of my comfort zone because I don't know why I am like that, but I do. And I think that that's part of starting a business or starting anything. And I just know like, I'll figure it out. And especially now with like Chat GPT and like the internet, like we didn't even have all of those aspects or resources that we really can figure out anything nowadays.
I think it's so interesting, though, that you would be the kind of person that loves to skydive and likes to do scary things and still struggled with stepping into building your own business for so long, right?
Yeah.
Because I think because it ties back to you're not putting yourself out there when you go skydiving. You're not putting yourself out there when you do something scary because there's no result that you're expecting from it. Whereas when you decide I'm going to put myself out there as a business owner, now I'm going to be judged. I could be rejected. Like, what do you make that mean about you?
Honestly, there's probably like something in my childhood where I was rejected, and it's just created this like narrative in my head. To be honest, I don't know what it is, but I feel like that's what it has to be.
Even today, you have over 100,000 followers on your Instagram page. You have a very large business. Maybe speak to the scale of the business you've built, and you still have that feeling, right?
I think it's definitely less. I'm definitely feeling more confident in who I am, because I've done this for so long. But definitely, I feel like even 2 years ago, I had a lot more of that fear of rejection. But now I kind of am like, what's the worst that can happen? You know, I
Yeah.
kind of, it's shifted, I think, in me. But yeah, definitely it was there in the past.
What would you say to the woman that's listening that let's just say her heart is for interior design, but she's letting fear of rejection stop her? Like, what would you say to her right now?
Honestly, what's the worst that can happen? I think sometimes if you think worst case scenario, then you realize that's actually not that bad. That kind of maybe calms your nerves a little bit. I did have the luxury of once launching my business as a stay-at-home mom, so we weren't worried about having an income because I didn't bring up the income. Everything was extra. So I think that definitely helped me with launching my business. It honestly was just like, oh, this will be something fun. I am a busybody by nature, and I just kind of thought, this will be something fun to do on the side, creative, see if I can actually do this. And then it got to a point where it was like, oh, this is like actually a thing.
How long was
Hire employees. It was probably 2 years that I hired my first employee. And then 2 years ago, I finally got a studio. So we were working out of my home for a while. And then, and I didn't want that overhead cost, but now it was like, okay, I need a place that my employees can go, that if I'm out of town or sick, that they can go, and we have space for all of our samples. And so I took that leap 2 years ago, and it's been probably one of the best decisions I've done in my business.
I can imagine. So as far as starting a business like this, there's really not a lot of overhead.
No, well, there is a lot of programs. I mean, I probably have like 7 to 10 different programs that I use for my business. You have a invoicing software, you have AutoCAD, SketchUp, all those kind of programs, Photoshop. We now have Canva, and that's just the creative side. Then there's also like the back end stuff so there is quite a bit of overhead with that. And then when you grow your team, obviously there's more overhead. But if you're just by yourself, I mean, I think I probably used QuickBooks for invoicing when I first got started. So if you don't pay for all those things, then it's probably smaller overhead.
Right. Well, you get rolling with the business. You don't invest in those things. Did you have all of those programs when you started getting clients?
No.
Yeah.
No.
You started
The
getting
invoicing one was the first program I got. Or Photoshop was probably the first. Photoshop, then probably the invoicing program that we use. It creates like proposals and POs that we can send to our vendors. And then probably it wasn't until, and even actually my first employee, they had AutoCAD. They have the student version. So we got by with that for a while. And then it was like, okay, they're no longer a student. Like, we need to probably get it ourselves. And so now we have that. And then we just bought SketchUp last year. And we use Enscape, which is, it kind of turns SketchUp into more photorealistic image. So you kind of use those together. We use Slack.
But you did start without any of those things and you build your business. You even said earlier that the AutoCAD was so important, and you even proved that even that's not necessary. You can start without knowing how to use it and without having it. And you can get, as you grow your business, you can invest back into yourself, what you know, and the tools that you have to then grow your business. So I just think there's so many people that dream of something like this. Like, how does it feel now to live in something that you dreamt of doing so many years prior? Like we talked about this earlier, but how many years ahead would you be if you had stepped into that a lot sooner? There's so many women that are listening thinking, I really wish I was doing this, but for whatever reason, we're not stepping into that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that fear holds you back a lot. And I actually had a question I do like a Q&A every week. I had someone ask like, when should I start my business or something like that? And my advice is just do it. Like, just start. And it could be, if you have a job, it can be on the side. All you have to do is get one client, and then from there you get another. And then once it gets to be the point where you have enough clients that you can then quit your other job, you could do it slow. I grew my business pretty slow, I would say. Like, I've been in business 10 years, but I also feel like I'm just getting started, because for many years, I've never worked full time on my business, to be honest, because when my kids were young, I worked 3 days a week. And then now that they're in school, I work when they're in school. So I work like 9 to 3. And some days, if I need, my husband will pick them up, or my mother-in-law or my mom. But that's really important, that balance. And I have another employee for me that she has kids, and so she's done at 3 as well, So I don't know. I think that that's really important, that we can also have a career and a, business, but then also still be with our families.
How compatible do you feel this line of work is with balance in life and being able to build it in the nooks and crannies-ish of your day?
I mean, I feel like it's any business that needs work, but I like it because it's creative and it's different every day. I don't feel like there's no 2 days the same. But I think it's definitely very compatible how I built it, because I'm also really, it's taken me a long time, but I'm good at delegating. And I think that that's very important when you own a business, to be able to delegate and focus on like big picture, or the things that you're good at and that give you energy, and then offload like the little tasks. So whether that's when they were young, I had a nanny and someone that helped with laundry. And now I have an assistant that helps me go through my emails, and, my team takes off each different part. And I can focus on big picture of growing my business. But then also because I'm a designer at heart, I really want to be involved in the design and the client facing aspect of it. So, I'm still involved in sourcing. I might not source every piece in a room. That's why I have a design team, but I'm big picture. I'm sourcing a lot of the big items, kind of the end, the accessorizing. I still love that part. So I probably won't ever give that away, to be honest. I kind of know where I need to spend my time to make it most effective, and kind of outsource the rest, which I still need to outsource some other things. That it's a process.
Learning the things that you want to be spending time on versus the things you really don't, and then figuring out, how do I find the person that is going to do this task? Yeah, for sure. What is the best business advice that you've ever received?
Honestly, I feel like the fake it till you make it actually kind of works. I've done that a lot throughout my career, where I might not know something and I'll say, I'll get back to you on that one, and then do research on the back end. And I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed by that. So I think that. And then also, I think just always trying to improve. I think just in your personal life and business, because that's how you get further throughout each stage of, your business, your life. If we're not growing as people, then we're not, we're staying stagnant. And I don't think that's good for us. I think it's good to always be growing.
I think it's the movie Catch Me If You Can, and it's Leonardo DiCaprio, and he goes through all these different jobs. He's like an imposter. I think that's the name of the movie.
Yeah.
There's a part where he's like teaching college classes, and they ask him, how did you teach college classes without a college education? And he said, I just needed to stay one chapter ahead. And that's literally how you run a business. You literally just need to be one chapter ahead of what you're trying to produce and create in the world, right?
That's really good. And that's true. I feel like that's really good advice.
It's funny because when you see it in the movie, it makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
How it applies to, and it's like going pro. No one starts as a professional. Everyone starts as a beginner. So we have this belief that we're not good enough, that we don't know enough, we're not trained enough, but no one starts with all of that. No one does. Everyone starts feeling that way.
Yeah, it definitely takes time. And I think if you can find people that you can bounce ideas off, that's super helpful as well. I have a group of designers here locally that will text constantly, what would you do in this situation? Or even it's like, I had this design dilemma that I think this is the answer, but what do you guys think? And so just because I've been doing this a long time, I don't know everything, that's pretty impossible to know.
Absolutely. Well, networking is huge no matter what you're doing. Finding people that are doing the same thing that you can learn from, that are maybe a little bit ahead of you, that you can grow with, but also it's connections, relationships. Life is a relationship game. So working on the relationships you have with the people around you, everything gets better when you focus on 10 out of 10 relationships. Now, what is one thing about you that you wish people knew better about you?
Ooh, I've never been asked this question. I feel like, you only see a little snippet of me on social media, but I feel like there's so much more to me. I'm kind of funny. I feel like people maybe don't know that. I have a good sense of humor. I get that from my dad. And I also am like very heavily involved in like our church and doing a lot of community things that I don't really showcase that. And that's super important to me as well. So maybe those two things. And also I feel like I don't show my kids a lot on social media, but I find that my biggest purpose and job in life is to be a mom. And I've always thought that. I've always really tried to find that balance between owning a business and being a mom and being a wife. I think that that's really important. My relationship with my husband and making sure that that's a healthy one for my kids to see, and, constantly dating my husband so that we've been together almost 20 years and I still love him actually probably more, because we've been through a lot of things together. And so I think there's a lot of things that people don't know about me, maybe.
What are two pieces of advice that you would give to the woman listening that does have a business that also wants to improve her relationship with her kids or her husband?
I think setting aside time. So, your calendar is big. I think the beginning of the year, me and my husband sat down and figured out what like our perfect year would look like, or our perfect week. And so making sure your calendar reflects that. You really prioritize date night. And so we do that every week. We try to. Sometimes we're out of town or we're too tired. So date night's just like watching a show in bed. But that's super important. I think also quality time is super important. And like our kids, we actually started doing this as well, which has been so fun, is every other month. We tried to do every month, but it just didn't work out. So I'd say like at least once a quarter, we do a one-on-one date with our kids.
I like that.
So they get to choose what they want to do, and we give them a budget, and then they have to plan it and make sure that it hits within the budget as well. So then it's teaching them how to budget, and then we get that quality time. That was something I kind of stole from my parents. We would do one-on-one dates and had fond memories of that. And so we decided to do that with them, and they love it. Like one me and my son, we went to dinner and then we went and got a Lego set and built a Lego set together. So that's what he wanted to do. And honestly, Legos are really fun. It's better than a puzzle and it's kind of like therapeutic. I'm like, I can see why you like this. Like it's just, and so we would take turns building it. And that was really fun. Then of course, my daughter, I think we went shopping and pedicures or something. But just those like quality one-on-one times, I think are super important. Connection, because life's busy. And even when I am with them, you know, they have sports or want to hang out with their friends. And so just try to capture that before they get to be too cool for their parents.
Yeah, it comes way faster than you ever expect.
Yeah. I saw something recently. So my kids are 12 and 10. And so I'm to that aspect where it's like I literally only have 6 summers with my daughter and 8 summers with my son. And that makes it seem so short and makes me so sad. But I just have to be excited for like the next phase, like grandkids, and also then maybe me and my husband travel more without the kids, you know. So every phase is fun, but it's just sad that it goes so quick.
And I would even, not to make that worse, but I would even say it's not even till they're 18 because they do get to be too cool for their parents a lot earlier than 18. And it's so important to be intentional about building into the relationship you have with your kids. My oldest is 17. And I love the relationship that we have, but it takes the parent being responsible for 90% of the relationship investment. And I think it can be very easy to think, well, they don't want to spend time with me, so that's that. And you can create so much positive change in a relationship if you're really intentional about the outcome you want to create. And with my kids, for me, it's 90% my responsibility to pursue them, to be curious about them, to empower them with questions that cause them to know that they can trust themselves, things like that. But yeah, I've seen that people think it's till they're 18, but then it's almost like 10 to 12 that they really start developing their own personality and friend groups and want to go do things with their friends more than their parents. It's interesting, but it's all beautiful. So was there ever a time where you didn't have balance with your kids or your husband?
Honestly, all the time. I'm not, you know, I feel like it's a constant struggle. I'm not going to pretend like I have it figured out because I don't. I think that there's sometimes a week that, you know, I might have an install where it's like I'm working late hours and it's all focused on work. And then there's times where it's like I have a lot of kid things and so I'm focused more on my kids. Or, you know, summer comes up and it's like I want to maybe work from home more or do more things with them. So I think it's a constant battle. I got some really good advice one time. I'm trying to think how it goes, but basically be present in whatever you do. So if you're like with your kids, don't be trying to do work and like be with your kids. Like be with your kids. If you're at work, be at work and be intentional of your time and be really present. Because I think then that creates the ultimate balance, even though I think there's no such thing as like perfect balance. But I do feel like creating my hours where I can get my kids from school, that helps with the balance. But I think there's always a constant struggle. Like,
absolutely. The way I had it explained is that you need to be 100% where you are 100% of the time. And when I first heard that, I thought 100% feels like a lot. How could that sounds like perfection. That's what I initially heard. It sounds like perfection. How can you be perfect? And it's more of, like you say, when you're with your kids, you're 100% with your kids. When you're at work, you're 100% focused on work. And it takes practice to get to that point. But I think that helped me a lot is to focus on, if I'm at the ball game, I need to be 100% at the ball game, not 80% at the ball game. And I still struggle with this, but working to be 100% where you are or be where your feet are is another way I've heard it. So wherever your feet are, if it's, you know, in a client's house, your mind is focused on the client. If it's with your kids, it's focused on your kids. If it's on the date with your husband, it's focused on your husband. But there's so many different ways. And I agree with you. I think that it's an illusion and it's something we're constantly pursuing. You just need to be in pursuit of it.
I actually was talking to a woman and she was telling me it's like if you had plates that were spinning. Sometimes you need to spin this plate a little bit and then you need to go back over here and spin this plate and to keep them all spinning. And so I thought that was really interesting as well, that sometimes your focus needs to be over here a little bit, sometimes it needs to be over there, and to keep everything running, because as women, we do a lot.
I know you started slow, but there's also the amount of effort that it takes. If you're in a position where you're launching a business and you actually need it to produce income, you're not home in a situation where you don't need to have income right away. You have to get out of balance to create momentum in a business for a season. And even where you were at, did you have any of that in building your business?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a lot of time where I would be working late at night. I would wake up early before my kids got up. I would be working during nap time. And so I was kind of pulled at all different directions. And I think that that was like a huge sacrifice. And even just hiring someone to come in, because I always kind of thought I would be a stay-at-home mom, to be honest. That was kind of hard. But what I've found early on was I was the best version of myself for my kids when I also had my business and I was able to be creative, and I felt very fulfilled at that aspect of my life. And so then I could come home to my kids and be present and give them a better version of myself, because I think a lot of times it can be exhausting. We always joke that my husband would come home from work and I'd be like, oh, social media by day. And I'm like wanting to chat with him. And he's like, I'm so tired. I'm like so overstimulated. And I didn't get that until I started working, that like, oh yeah, like when you have that interaction with other
Adult.
adults, it's then exhausting. And so, I mean, he was a good sport. He didn't let me know that until I started my business. I was like, I'm so tired. Let's just order in and do nothing. He's like, yeah, this is what I've been trying to tell you. He was a good sport about it. But
Yeah. So I'm just curious. I think that you said you go to church. I think that part of if you're a Jesus follower, part of our faith, and I've talked about this before, is that you are called to serve. And I think a part of why we feel fulfilled is because we are called to serve. And I don't believe that is just serving our own family. It's more than that. And how does that line up for you?
oh, I totally agree. I've found when I've been like the most sad in my life or like worried about problems that I'm going through, if I think outside myself and I go and help other people, that's been a huge mind shift change, and not focusing on yourself. I mean, I feel like there's probably some statistic out there that serving others makes you like way more happy. I don't know what the percentage would be, but because you're outside of your mind and you're not thinking like, poor me, or this is the trial I'm going through, it allows you to help others. And I've used that a lot in my life when I've kind of been down, trying to get inspiration of who I can help and other people so that I can be of service versus wallowing in my despair, if you will.
Right. Well, and I think we're all wired as mothers to want to be so involved in our kids' lives. I know for me, I absolutely couldn't stand the thought of somebody else seeing my son or my daughter, my sons or my daughter roll over for the first time or take their first step or say their first word. That was a huge motivator for me to always find a way that I had ownership of my time. But going back to that period of time when you were a stay-at-home mom, did you have periods of time where you were feeling sad about not having something of your own?
I didn't. No.
Really?
I feel like my house was so organized. I was like, would spend my time with like play dates with my friends. Also, I did do on the side when my daughter was a baby. My dad owns a chiropractic company or office, and I would help with the billing, so I would do that. So I always kind of did something on the side. Maybe not the first 6 months of her life, but I loved the slow downtime of it, to be honest. Um, I I don't know. I think I would have always done something on the side just because that's my nature. I mean, I was doing hair too. I did hair on the side when she was little too. So I always kind of did something outside of the home too. But I feel like the first year of her life, I thrived, if I'm being honest. I loved that time period of just being like slow living and not
Yeah.
frantic. I would go and like walks a lot, and I would socialize with other friends that had babies my age, which helped, I think, as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of moms that are home. And I do agree that first year, especially, you're so consumed with that baby. But there's a lot of moms home past year 2 that are feeling that lack of fulfillment. And because they don't have an outside job, something outside
Yeah.
human adult interaction. And it's important to prioritize that in some way because it can get lonely.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I was really good at the first couple years of getting together with my friends more. So that's probably kind of the aspect that once I started my business kind of went to the side. I was spending less time with friends and doing play dates and things like that. So again, going back to the balance, it's like one thing has to give. And that was, I mean, I still would do things with my friends, but it was just smaller scale, like maybe once a month versus like multiple times during the week or things like that. But yeah.
Yeah. I think, again, balance is an illusion that's not actually possible to be in 100% balance 100% of the time. And anything that you say yes to is a no to something else.
Totally. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
As we close, one last message from your heart to any woman listening that loves interior design. What does she need to hear?
My biggest advice for anyone that wants to start a design business, I would say try to work for someone, but typically if you want to work for someone, you need some skills. So if you want to start a design business, I would maybe take some online courses. I would definitely learn AutoCAD. You could even go to like your local community college and take some design courses just to get a base. Or honestly, you could probably YouTube a lot. I think YouTube is a great aspect as well for learning things. Now they also have a lot of different like camps or different courses that you can go to and learn. I think that would be super helpful. And then the biggest advice would be just do it. I mean, I feel like it's not going to be easy. There's going to be a learning curve, but the more you kind of learn your market and speak to other designers that maybe also are starting off to figure out what everyone's charging so that you can figure out that aspect. But I think there's a lot of ways to get different things started. Also, I do with my design sessions that I offer, I do also offer mentoring. So if someone wants to pick my brain and ask any questions, they can sign up for that. That's another way I think you could learn a lot of information. But yeah, there's I think a lot of different avenues, but the biggest aspect is to just get started and run it as if you are a big company as soon as you get started, because then when you do get big, you don't have the growing pains. So creating processes, procedures, so that when you do hire people, it's less of a learning curve and you're not having to come up with training manuals. You kind of already have that in place. That was kind of a little smorgasbord of advice, but that would probably be my quick 30-second advice for anyone.
That's awesome. I didn't realize you do mentorship too. That's amazing. So where can anyone listening find you?
So my website, Lexi Westergard Design. And on Instagram, I'm Lexi Westergard _design. You feel free to DM me. Westergaard does not have a U, so I feel like that's a common misconception. But those are probably my two most active places that I'm on the internet.
Well, thanks for spending your day with me, and I cannot wait to be working with you myself because I absolutely love everything that I've seen of yours. It's beautiful.
I'm excited too. Thanks, Indra.
What a fun conversation with Lexi. I love how she shared not just the highlight reel, but also the behind the scenes, the doubts, the delays, the learning curves that come with starting a business, and ultimately the sense of purpose that fuels the work that she does in people's homes. If Lexi's story inspired you to take that next brave step, whether it's launching your dream business, rediscovering your own creative spark, or making space for what matters most, I hope you walk away from this episode knowing you're not alone. And if you loved this episode, take a second to leave a review or share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep leaning into your purpose and let no one clip your wings.